You've sold a few companies.
I've done 18 transactions.
Have you got any advice for business owners that are perhaps a little bit further behind in terms of the life cycle of their business? What should they be doing to try and get their business ready for sale and to maximise the value that they get when they exit?
So that's quite a lot of things to unpick in that, really. I suppose the first thing I would sort of say is, and you see a bit of this on LinkedIn really now, which is becoming quite an unusual place really. It's different to what I think it was originally set up for, but it leads into this point really, which is if you set a business up, I've never set a business up purely because I want to then sell it in 10 years or 5 years or whatever the time horizon is. I got involved in my first business in '96 because I didn't want to work for somebody else. I wanted the freedom.
Yeah, so you wanted to earn a living.
Yeah, and I actually took a massive salary drop. I had a company car, I had, real good salary, and I went from that to a £99 Saab, and then my wife said she was pregnant. So I wasn't doing it for the money, I can tell you that. But I had the freedom and the ability to grow some of my ambitions. And I think the starting point with any business, before you come to the sale piece, is you why are you doing it? Very often the most successful people, if you look at things, are successful because they turn their hobby, their passion, into what happens to be a business. And people talk about, I don't want to get onto the whole environment about 9 to 5 work-life balance and all that, but if your work day is structured around a particular time scale, 9 to 5, whatever your hours are, and it's absolutely important to you that, you're probably not going to be as successful as in your own business as if you treat it slightly differently. I don't have many hobbies, and business happens to be a hobby of mine, so I'm thinking about it all the time. So coming back to your question, firstly, why have you gone into business? If you're doing it just to try and create some capital gain, then there are things you can do: tax planning, business planning, succession planning, making sure there's a whole host of things that are in place before you actually go on that particular journey. You've then got to decide, who is going to be a target for you for the business. I've done a couple of trade sales, and I've been involved in 4 private equity deals.
A target, as in somebody who's going
to acquire you, acquire you, and that might be a management buyout, i.e. the existing team. It might be using some sort of share type scheme. There's quite a lot of cooperative type share things around now, which are quite funky for people, or PE, private equity. But private equity it's a double-edged sword. Private equity, yeah, you can get a bit of your money out, but you have to remember, when private equity buys your business, they ain't doing it because they like you. They're doing it because they want to double their money in the shortest possible period of time. And if they can earn 3 or 4x on the money they've invested, then they will really do that. Which can mean you get businesses that have grown successfully and moved on, but it can also mean that you end up with cutting away some of the core of the business, and that's what you have to be careful of. Now, if you've got a business that's growing, it's very difficult to have an entrepreneurial-led business at 5, 6, 8 staff and 2,000 staff, because the two things don't work. So you do have to go through a transition. Understanding all of that, and understanding and getting that right, and then working with people who have got some experience in that sort of environment is probably a good idea. I mean, I get approached
as in mentors.
I've always had a mentor. I don't actually currently have one today, actually, not because I don't need one. It's just because I just don't currently have one. But I've always had mentors. I've been mentored by some quite interesting people throughout my career, and they're really good, actually. And a mentor, you don't necessarily want to have somebody who's really close to how you do things. You want them to be mentors about challenge often. I think mentors are good. If you do a PE deal, you'll pretty much be required to have a non-executive board. And that could be good or it could be bad. You know, I've worked with some good NEDs, and I've also worked with some less good NEDs. So that's quite important. But you know, look, I mean, I invest in business. I get pitched at least one a week probably for me to invest in. I've got a particular criteria now, and the one thing I would say is if you're looking to sell your business, particularly if it's PE, they ain't going to buy your business. They're going to buy you running the business. And PE is not too dissimilar to a bank. And the point is, if you've got a business making £1 million, you can do a PE deal if you can demonstrate to them that you're going to make 3 million in 2 or 3 years, and then they'll lend you the money or buy some of your shares off you. That's typically what they do. Venture capital, you know, I get pitched stuff. You know, we've got this fantastic idea. It's a new Uber. It's a new this. We need 3 million quid. Well, you're with the cloud cuckoo. Like, oh, we've been told our business is worth 10 million. Well, who buy? Oh, some advisor on the internet. Yeah. You know what I mean? So reality is what you need.
Yeah. And how did you cope with the transition of going from business owner, where you can pretty much do what you like, to being part of a business that's run by venture capitalists, PE, etc., and you're basically an employee, aren't you? How did you find that transition?
Yeah, well, you interesting enough, I didn't see myself as an employee. Actually, what you have to remember is this, right? Private equity, no matter how they position themselves, right? They need businesses more than businesses need private equity, right? You know, all the people who work in PE funds, they are working in there because they can't work in businesses. I'm not saying all of them. I don't want to be super general, but to have this idea that you have to do exactly what they tell you to do is, quite frankly, not correct. Okay, you know, if you've grown a business from nothing to 10 people to 50 people to 100 people, from, you know, £1 in the bank to 5 million in the bank, whatever the numbers are, then you've done that, right? They're buying into that journey, whether they're buying in at the beginning, the middle, or further down the line. You know, that you have done things they can't do. Okay, now unless you act like a complete tit when you're on the next phase, you know, they are going to have to rely on you because it's your vision, it's your strategy, it's your growth plan, your energy, your motivation. You've brought the team together, your sector. Okay. Now there are sector specialists in PE. Don't get me wrong, but to suggest that PE take a 30-40% stake and then say, right, and you need to get rid of that person, that is completely wrong. And one of the problems with PE or with companies that are bought or invested in by PE is that they immediately start to defer to the PE houses, and that's when the sort of the DNA that the business had starts to falter, and the people who work for the company would see that. If they think, you know, if a CEO starts to say things like, oh, well, we can't do that now because we've got these new investors, that is going to interfere with the staff. That's when they start leaving, and that's when the businesses start to go down. What you need to be able to do is have robust discussions, because at the end of the day, if a PE doesn't make money, the kid who's made that investment, he's fired. So, you know, they need you more than you need them, because predominantly the reason you take on PE is so you can cash out a bit. That's why you do it. It's not, you know, growth and venture capital. That's a different sort of transaction basis.
Right. Okay.